So our first one looks at the trends in online payments and the checkout and the expanding choices available to both retailers and consumers in that shopping journey. Welcome everyone. Welcome, James. Welcome to all of our panelists. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Katie. On our panel today, we've got Charisse Barcel, Head of Purchase Experience for Amazon Pay. She has more than 8 years of experience working with customer payments at places like Amazon, Western Union, and eBay. Also on the panel are two retail vets, Raphi, Mahgerefteh, founder and CEO of Allurez, and Briggs, Rajagopalan, Head of Digital Product at ThirdLove. With that, let's get into the discussion. First, a question for the group. Broadly, what impact does checkout flow have on conversion? And let's start with Charisse here.
Yeah, thanks for the question, James, and thanks for having me. Yeah, checkout is an important part of your conversion funnel. You've wooed your customers this far, your marketing efforts, your brand experience, your careful pricing considerations, and all of that funnel ends with checkout. But still, every quarter, merchants lose $100 billion in sales due to checkout friction. 69% of online shoppers who add a product to cart just don't check out. And merchants don't have to lose customers there. It's solvable. So the best thing merchants can do is ensure continuity and predictability across their flow for their online purchase experience. For example, like I look at a lot of merchants' sites as I help support them with Amazon Pay. And sometimes you see 3 red buttons that all do different things, and customers don't know how to get to the next step. So you don't need to put that cognitive load on customers. You can make it easy for them. Another big thing is just pre-populating. Express checkout options like Amazon Pay can do that directly from customers' wallets. But merchants can even do simple things like make sure that they have address prediction or surface addresses saved in their browsers. And of course, they can get rid of steps. So you don't need 14 different form fields. Most merchants just need 7. So there's a lot of ways that you could reduce that friction. And it's an important part. It's the last part to win that customer.
Great. And Briggs, why don't you tell us about kind of what you've seen about how your tweaks to checkout flow have altered your conversion?
Thanks for having me, James, and it's great to be part of this conversation as well. Charisse hit on a lot of the important parts around why checkout is super important. What I've seen is that, as Charisse mentioned, the consumer at this point is super invested in buying your product, right? And so you want to make the experience as smooth as possible. And as Charisse pointed out, I think one way you could do that is to auto-populate fields, use information that you've already captured, streamline that experience as much as possible. Another area, that affects a lot of retailers is especially around promotions and discounts. Something that I continue to see is that, when you're a retailer and when you're using discounts or promotions, it's not apparently clear how that impacts your, conversion. So, our shoppers want to get the best deal. And so they're constantly looking out for promotions and discounts, and a huge area of opportunity that I think we can tackle during that checkout funnel, especially, is to really make it clear for consumers how the promotions that they're looking forward to applying is going to, impact the final price that they pay. So again, I think promotions is an opportunity. Payments is a huge opportunity. Making it seamless, one-click checkout. I'm a huge advocate for that, and I know Amazon Pay, enables that for a lot of our retailers and for merchants, especially like ours at ThirdLove. And all of those opportunities for us to really take advantage of is what will make checkout really, really seamless for our customers.
And Raphi, do you have any
yeah, thank you, James. And thank you for having me on the panel. So Charisse and Briggs definitely touched on a lot of great points. I definitely think that the checkout flow has a huge impact on a retailer's conversion rate. It's actually one of the most important parts of a retailer's website. So the checkout flow has to be very seamless and very easy to use. So you can have a customer that is interested in buying from you, and you could have thousands of competitors selling the same exact thing. So if your checkout flow is difficult to use, if the customer is experiencing any hurdles, they're just going to leave and buy from one of your competitors. So it's extremely important that you focus your time and resources to making sure that your checkout flow is working properly and that you test it on a constant basis. So at Allurez, we actually work very, very hard to make sure that our checkout flow is very seamless, very easy to use. We do a lot of A/B testing. We do a lot of user testing, and we definitely go to great lengths to make sure that it's as easy to use as possible.
Great, thank you. So Briggs, next question might be for you. What did you look for in your e-commerce payment solution when you're looking at something new or expanding your options?
Yeah, so there's actually 5 criteria that I typically use. It starts with the customer. So what is the customer experience that we're trying to drive, right? And that really means, what are the type of payment methods that our consumers are really interested in? Credit cards are the obvious one, but are there alternative payment methods that our consumers are interested in? I think the second is, as part of the consumer experience is whether it's a hosted or on-site experience. Hosted means, payment solutions like PayPal, for example, take consumers out of your website typically and then bring them back. So does that really fit into your consumer experience, or is it going to be detrimental? Fees and costs is the second criteria. Percentage, typically payment solutions or providers typically charge a percentage of a transaction or a fixed fee per transaction. Some of them do monthly subscriptions. So ideally, what you'd want to look at is the total cost, right? So that includes setup and sign-up costs, transaction fees, and recurring fees, if any. Then the third thing is recurring billing. So if you're a business that requires sort of monthly or annual subscriptions, does your payment solution provide that ability to process recurring billing? If you're an omni-channel retailer, I think it's super important to have omni-channel capabilities. Tokenization is a huge area that is an opportunity that, as a retailer, you need to be thinking about. And typically payment solutions that provide omni-channel capabilities will be more seamless for your consumer. And then lastly, what I would say is security and privacy compliancy, right? So look for a payment solution that is level 1 PCI compliant. In addition, make sure that if they're capturing data, they're CCPA or GDPR if you're in Europe compliant, and make sure that the providers are doing CVV2 verifications and adhere to encryption standards and things like that. So those are the 5, I would say, criteria that I would use to evaluate a payment provider.
Yeah, that's a great checklist. So if you've been in e-commerce a while, you may have a good track record with some of your standard payment options, but we're seeing every day there's new and growing interest in new payment options available to the consumers. So Charisse, why would a business implement an additional payment method on their site?
Yeah, I'll go back to the point that Briggs mentioned on customer obsession, right? So if you want to deliver for the customer what they're looking for in payments, and also the best way to measure customer experience is to look at conversion. Are you adding friction in the funnel? Are you causing problems for your customers as they're trying to check out? So there's a lot of opportunities you have with new payment methods in order to solve that friction. So it's not surprising that Amazon Pay was just reported to be the fastest checkout option from payments.com. So there's over 300 million Amazon customers who A, have an account already with Amazon, so they don't need to set up a new account. B, have the most recent information already in their account, so they don't have to type in an address, they don't have to find their credit card. Just asking this room, when was the last time you purchased something on Amazon.com? Your address there is probably up to date. And then C, it's a familiar, trusted experience. Again, you're not trying to figure out what that button's going to do or what you need to do next. And James, you mentioned before this panel that this group likes stats. So I'll throw one out. Baymard research says that 2 of the top 3 reasons that customers abandon cart is because A, they need to create an account, and B, the checkout process is just too long and complicated. So if you have a payment solution that can solve those 2 biggest problems, you're gonna capture more customers. Yeah, I think that's that's the biggest reason to think about. Like when you think about customer friction and customer time, it feels like it's just one extra step, or it's just an extra form field. Like how hard is it? Or it's just another minute for them to go through the funnel. But just think about your daily lives and what you're doing with your life. That's, if you get a solution that can cut your checkout time by half, which is what Amazon does, and many payment solutions drop it by 40%. So 40%, 50%, that's half the time that customers can get distracted by helping their kids with schoolwork. So I'm certainly there these days, or having their internet fail. We hear that a ton from customers. And especially as we start to open back up and customers are on their mobile phone getting shopping done on their commute, you're going to hear that a lot more. And then just getting frustrated with the friction, like Raphi mentioned, going to a competitor site because it just isn't worth it. And especially with digital first customers, they're not going to put up with it. Maybe I'll just add a few points to what Briggs mentioned before, also on other reasons merchants could consider that. Additional payment methods is fraud detection. So every $1 of fraud costs e-commerce businesses $5 to identify, manage, and address. So again, if you have a payment solution that can handle that for you, that saves you time and money. I love what you mentioned also on omni-channel, Briggs. So there's solutions that can handle those unique order or post-order experiences, like with 100 million Alexa users, and just also the ability to attract new customers. So there's co-marketing opportunities, attracting the coveted Prime customer. There's other opportunities with the payment solutions you have as well.
Great. Raphi, have you considered any, new payment options, and what kind of drove you, maybe? What kind of drove Allurez to consider adding things, or?
Yeah, so we definitely have multiple payment options. We offer financing through a firm. We have a layaway program. We offer PayPal, obviously the option to pay with credit cards. And Charisse, I think you'll be very happy to hear that we also accept Amazon Pay. And I think it's, I do definitely think it's very important for websites to offer different types of payment options, just because of the fact that different consumers have different tastes and requirements. So some of them might be more tech savvy than others. Some of them might require financing, while others would rather pay in full. So you want to be able to definitely tailor to different type of consumers, and offering different type of payment options is definitely a good way to do so.
Great. Yeah, and financing or buy now, pay later options, that's a growing trend, giving customers a whole new way to think about a lot of online purchases. But it may not be the right option for all kinds of sellers. Raphi, I know you have high price jewelry that can really, obviously it's of interest there. What are your results with financing, and do you think it's right for other kinds of sellers like you?
So ever since we've implemented financing, we've had higher conversion rate. Our average order value has drastically increased. So I definitely think it's a very good idea for pretty much all retailers to offer financing. At Allurez, we've been doing it for over 8 years now. If you're selling high-priced items, I definitely suggest it, because not everyone might have the budget for the products that you're selling. But even if you're selling a $100 product, I think it's a good way for you to get people to buy from you. So even $100, maybe your customer doesn't have the funds available at the time, and they would want to have the option to split the payments or finance it, and you don't want to lose any customers because of that. So if you can offer financing, I 100% recommend it. Yeah, and we've definitely been seeing a very growing trend over the past few years among customers that are using financing. So every year, the rate has been increasing.
And
I'll add to Raphi's comment. I think every business is different, so it really depends on your consumer demographic, right? But to Raphi's point, if your business is also looking at widening their demographic base, so maybe even the younger generation potentially, and who are just coming out of college, they're in their first role, for example, they may not they're aspirational buyers, right? They may not necessarily have the funds to buy your product. And, typically, Allurez, like you said, is, jewelry, which is typically expensive. Even Third Love actually, is quite expensive for, as a lingerie company or an intimate company, right? If you compare us to Aerie or Victoria's Secret or whatnot. But, we pride ourselves in providing quality product that addresses fit and comfort over price point. And so because of that, we feel that like having options such as like buy now or pay later actually allows a broader demographic to access our products. And that I think is important as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. It's kind of a stepping stone between maybe your initial brands that you can go to the mall and buy yourself when you figure out, it's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just add one thing. I think that the huge opportunity there is that you're making a purchase possible for a set of customers who otherwise just couldn't shoulder the full purchase price. But of course, many of the most popular installment options carry significantly higher fees, so over twice of what you might get with standard payment options. And so you're spending money funding the installments that could go into higher operating margins or more conventional promotions that all customers care about. So I think like the three things to think about as a merchant when you're looking at those options are like, A, what's the lift going to be? And B, what are the fees? And C, are there co-marketing commitments? And so is there space on your site that you're using that you could otherwise use for something else? And I think like those three things will help you see it. And I think, Raphi, you mentioned earlier the beauty of A/B testing. Like that's an opportunity to see what is the actual lift versus what the fees that I'm paying, and is it worth it?
Yeah, and actually that jumps to a question we've got here. Jumping ahead a little bit here, but we talked about, you've got these payment options, these express checkout options. When in the funnel do you get to those? Because sometimes, I'll go through a payment and then I'll see at the end, oh, I could check out with Amazon Pay, I could check out with Apple Pay, I could check out with whatever. And you don't realize that. And you're like, that would have made why did I log in or sign up for an account already? So when do you guys think you kind of talk about express checkout with your customers? Briggs, I don't know if you want to start off with that one.
Sure. So for me, I think, it's what I've seen is that as early as possible, right? At the very minimal, put it in cart. But if you have products that are, I would say products that are high priced enough, even putting it on the product pages can really, really help, right? You should take a leaf from Amazon. They pioneered the buy now, capability, and a lot of these express payments have now provided that capability for merchants to take advantage of, especially since I believe, and Charisse, you may know this, I believe sort of like the trademark that Amazon has on buy now has expired. And so I think you should definitely take advantage of that if you're a merchant, right? I see more and more merchants do this. We're considering this at Third Love, but at the same time, Lululemon does it, Nike does it. It's very, very seamless for a consumer, especially if your consumer comes to your website on a frequent enough basis.
Right, and I imagine that'd help with Briggs, I guess, at Third Love. You've got a returning consumer coming to make a purchase, and Raphi, on your end, maybe they've looked at your item 30 times. It's like really beautiful, it really fits what they want, and then they can go and just hit buy now, and they don't have to, after looking at it multiple times, making sure it's right, they don't have to wade through a checkout process that's as long. Where do you guys show that express checkout?
So as you mentioned, most of our customers view our products and our website multiple times before making a purchase. They definitely do quite a amount of research on the products that we sell, as well as on the brand, because of the fact that they're spending so much money. We have it in the shopping bag, and I would suggest most websites having it there. There are a lot of companies that have it in their product page. That's a good idea also, but for us, it definitely works in the shopping bag.
All right.
That's the earliest place I would put it in.
Great.
Yeah.
And kind of a last question. Go ahead, Therese.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add quickly to that. We see so many merchants who wait until the last minute to tell customers that they have an express checkout option, and sometimes it's too late because you've already had the customer enter their name, enter their address, go through all of these form fields, and then you say, oh, you can have fast payments. But fast payments isn't just about their credit card. It's also about not having to enter all of those form fields. And so the earlier you can put it up and help them know that they don't have to get out of bed to go find their credit card, the more likely you're going to get that purchase.
Great. All right, we got one quick question, and maybe we'll move on to some Q&As, but this is kind of open-ended. It's about the future. So how will payments evolve in the next 6 to 12 months? You know, we've got crypto, financing, the return to in-store shopping, obviously, here in the States. That's going to change how people are checking out. How are these changes going to impact business? If you want to start, Therese.
Yeah, I mean, I think crypto is still a bit far out, but if you're just asking, you know, more broadly about how do we expect payments to change over the next 6 to 12 months, I think an important thing that we've seen from the pandemic is just a lot of customers are not doing well financially, and that means two things. One, payments that can offer enhanced rewards and reduce the immediate burden, like we talked about installments, but also, you know, 5% back. That's going to start to matter a lot more to customers. So thinking about what rewards and how you're supporting their actual wallet. I think the other thing that we see from customers not doing well is that you see a huge spike in fraud rates. So just, you know, random anecdote, identity theft has doubled in the US in 2020. So payments with enhanced identity verification fraud controls with an asterisk that don't add customer friction will best protect you know, shared customers and merchants from carrying the burden of those costs. And you know, just interesting opportunities there. You see Amazon One with, you know, Palm payments. You can see more biometric opportunities that, again, don't add friction, actually reduce friction for customers, but add enhanced identity verification fraud controls. I think another thing that's been important that's come out of this pandemic is omnichannel commerce. So we've gotten a lot more comfortable with our devices than we have with humans over the last 18 months. And so, you know, as we think about customers who want to be able to use voice or other devices, easily track their purchases, Alexa, where's my stuff? That'll also be a growing trend, certainly.
Great. All right, and I think with that, we're just about out of time here, but it was great to have you all here. I think we covered a lot of great ground, got some great stats, you know, I love those. So thank you to all of our panelists, and a big thank you to Amazon Pay as an elite sponsor of our event. And thank you to the audience